So I'm very, very happy to welcome you to Tuesday evenings at the Modern. If you don't know, I'm Terry Thornton, Curator of Education, and we've been doing this a while. Tuesday evenings is a long-running 8-week program each spring and fall season that I'm very happy to report is free and open to the public, one of the things I'm most proud of in my work here at the Modern. It's also on-site and live streamed, which I'm glad we've, for all the ills of the pandemic, it taught us to catch up with the times. So I'm glad we've been able to do that. And for all of you that are out there and watching us on our YouTube channel, welcome. We're glad you're here. And if there was ever an exhibition and a particular lecture to do this with, it's this one. So. It is lovely to be back. We have an exceptional lineup this season, and tonight is such a perfect way to kick off with the Modern's own Alison Hearst, who curated the museum's current special exhibition, I'll Be Your Mirror, Art in the Digital Screen. Alison came to this region, just to briefly give you a little background on Alison. I think most of you know her, but it would be a disservice if I didn't introduce her properly. She came to this region of Texas from El Paso. She received her BFA in art history from the University of North Texas and an MA from TCU. So she's one of our own in a lot of ways. She and her husband, the artist Chris Pierce, are important participants in the DFW art community and beyond. In her tenure at the Modern, Alison has curated and organized a number of exhibitions. Many of you will be familiar with her work as the most recent curator of the Modern's beloved Focus exhibition series, which she conceived, curated, and otherwise organized over the past 7 years. And to remind you of the breadth of that position, that was 3 exhibitions a year for 7 years. Alison's focus shows were a varied and imaginative lineup of artists, such as Mario Garcia Torres, Joyce Pensado, Lorna Simpson, Thomas Damon, Stanley Whitney, and most recently Jill Magid, Francis Stark, and Jamal Cyrus. And that is, of course, to name a few of a very long list. By design, the Focus exhibitions have included acquisitions, making Alison's voice a significant contribution to the Modern's permanent collection. In addition, she organized the popular 20-year survey, Robin O'Neill, We the Masses, and curated Donald Sultan's The Disaster Paintings, which traveled to a number of venues, including the Smithsonian American Art Museum in D.C. She was assistant curator for 2 of the Modern's particularly ambitious and impactful exhibitions, Urban Theater, New York Art in the 1980s, and Mexico Inside Out, themes in art since 1990. Then, of course, there is I'll Be Your Mirror, Art in the Digital Screen. Such a creative, relevant, and handsome exhibition that is receiving critical acclaim as a smart and important presentation of the history, the impact, and the current state of art in a digital age. Alison has graciously agreed to share her thoughts, observations, and experiences, as well as other insights into the making of this exhibition, which of course adds to the experience that I hope you have had, and since this particular exhibition requires multiple visits to take it all in, we'll continue to have in the galleries through the run of the exhibition. So if you will, please join me with a warm welcome for the Modern's curator, Alison Hearst.
Thank you, Terry, and hi, everyone. I won't lie, I thought about having a chat GPT bot write my lecture tonight, but I felt like that might be a little too far, so. For those of you that haven't seen the exhibition yet, I wanted to give you a little bit of insight into that. It's a very large-scale exhibition. It includes 50 artists. The work in the show starts from 1969 to the present, and there's 9 themes in total in which I organized the exhibition. I started in 1969 in particular because that was the year of the Apollo moon landing, but it was also the year of ARPANET, which is the prototype to today's internet. This was a very important moment in our history where screens were beginning to connect people in new and exciting ways, and where the television, of course, was soon becoming the home's electronic hearth. Of course, today, our lives, I don't know what they would look like without screens. And when I talk about screens in this show, too, I also wanted to add that I'm really discussing consumer-grade screens, such as computers, televisions, and smartphones. Of course, films could include that as well, but I'm really interested in these consumer-grade technology because those are the ones which can create, but also consume the information today. Could you lower the lights a little bit? So before getting deeper into the themes of the show and the works in the exhibition, I really wanted to talk a little bit about the genesis of the show and what brought it on. So I'm going to go ahead and read this quote from the artist Cao Fei. If you've seen the exhibition yet, you'll notice that my introduction panel starts with this. And if you've read the essay, you'll also know this quote because I start my essay with it too. I think it's a really important framework in kind of showing this moment in which the show was born, but also this, collective moment that we all experienced during the pandemic. We are sandwiched between the real world and cyberspace, and through acceleration and diffusion of attention, we accept such changes rapidly. Before doubts are even formed, our thoughts are interrupted by funny videos sent by friends or by our ecstasy for the 100 of likes that a selfie earns in 10 minutes. More is less. Everything is a datum and everything performs for data. We critique and dance at the same time. By the time we are about to leave this world, we might feel like we have never lived. So this quote, of course, is from 2020, and I think, I saw it in Art Forum. It was, during the time we were all, consuming art online and thinking about, the nature of the pandemic and how we were viewing art at the time. And I thought this quote really captured this feeling of being in between the screen life and real life. I, definitely think that the pandemic amplified this moment, this kind of hybrid world between reality and virtual space. But of course, it really crystallized something that was already underway for quite some time. So in this time as well, museums, of course, were closed to the public and were just completely scrambling and, to use a pandemic word, pivoting to make themselves more relevant and accessible at a time in which their doors were closed. And as you can see, this was often done through the aid of technology. Of course, here at the Modern, we were thinking about how to stay connected to all of our wonderful visitors during this time. And so a colleague of mine, Lee Hallman, and I started this program called Modern TV. We started it in May, and the first video was Mark Bradford's Dancing in the Street. Of course, Mark's show had opened in March 2020 and quickly closed, I think, a week after the pandemic started. So we were just kind of desperately trying to find a way to connect to our audiences, but also share the work that people were not able to experience in real life. And Modern TV felt like a really great way to accomplish this. But of course, all of these ways in which museums were thinking about reframing their collection and making it accessible online really began my thinking in art that was already considering the screen as both a tool and a subject. Of course, there's a long history of artists working with the screen. This wasn't something that just happened during the pandemic. As my exhibition shows, it's really began in 1969, even before that. So I was really interested interested in kind of showing and thinking about artists that were working with these technologies already. Art and technology, as well as new media, have long been an interest of mine already, and I wanted to shout out And/Or Gallery, which was in Dallas from 2006 to 2009. When I was a graduate student, I think I went to probably every show that Paul Slocum did, and as you know, he'll be here on March 21st with the artist Kristen Lucas in conversation. But this was really such an important space for Dallas, but for me as well. It really expanded the ways in which I thought about art and what could be shown in museums and gallery spaces, and he was truly somebody that was showing this type of artwork before anyone else in the country. And several of the artists that are in this show, including Guthrie Lonergan, are ones that I was introduced to in that space. And here's a picture of Kristen Lucas's show. I think this is probably the first time I saw her work. And now in the most, I would say, comprehensive book on post-internet art, Mass Effect, there's an essay by Paul, and the gallery is discussed quite a bit. So it's just really, I feel really lucky that we had that space here to introduce a lot of us in this room to expanded media, and I'm happy that it's still a gallery in Pasadena too. So really bringing together my prior interest in expanded media, but just this moment of the pandemic, and just, you know, I was thinking a lot about my job and having to look at art through screens. I have always been the type of person that meets with artists in person, does studio visits. I've never shown a piece, you know, an artwork in a show that I hadn't seen in person. So having to shift gears and really just all of my interactions, like many of us, were through a screen, and my experiences with art were through a screen as well. So just thinking about artists that were already working with the screen before this, and more naturally than, you know, some museums were making connections that seemed a little unnatural, like the robot visiting the museum seemed a little unnatural. But I was really thinking a lot of artists working in this space, and so that's really what kind of brought about this idea. This is a type of work I've long wanted to show more of in the museum, but it felt like a moment in which we really needed a deep dive to just really consider the connections between art and technology, and especially with the screen at the very axis of that. So, as I mentioned too, I wanted to include this. Khalil Robert Irving shared this with me the other day from one of our studio visits, but I've also never planned an exhibition without not having met a lot of artists in person. Of course, we all have gotten very used to Zoom and having these interactions online, but most of the planning of this show was also done through a screen, which I think is, you know, a really unique experience. And I mean, I think it's perfect for the you know, basis of the show, but I also wanted to mention too that Khalil's the only person that came to visit in person. So this is us when he was here to do a site visit, and he'll also be back to do a talk on March 7th. But it was great at the opening to meet several artists that I had only seen through a screen, and to be in the same space with them. So that was also a very unique experience in planning this show. So through my research and talking with artists, I didn't even talk about this, but I was at home. I had more time on my hands than usual, and our former curatorial assistant, Janelle Montgomery, and I created this really extensive database, and every time we looked at so much work. This was up to 400 artists at one point, and I was just really trying to look at everything I possibly could. I was looking at other exhibitions that dealt with art and technology. I was looking at different graduate programs to see recent MFAs. I really wanted to leave no stone unturned. There have been a few shows in the past decade, I would say, that have really focused on art and the internet, and a lot of these shows have the usual artists and the usual players. Of course, my show is different in that it's art and the screen, and comprises, televisions, which are not usually included in post-internet art. But I wanted to really have this expansive look and to just do something completely different that had been done before. This is the first exhibition of its kind in the Southwest. And really, we were kind of talking about at the opening, I think the closest place that has had an exhibition about art and technology at this scale was Chicago. So in doing this research and talking to artists, I really wanted the art to kind of rise to the fore. I didn't want to create these themes that would pigeonhole the works. I really wanted to just kind of let the works tell their story. And so in looking at this art on, this database and talking to artists, these themes started emerging and these threads became stronger and stronger. And so that's really how these 9 themes that organized the exhibition were formed. Of course, like any show, these themes are imperfect. Some artworks could make sense in multiple themes, but really it's the themes where art and the screen intersect most dynamically, and that's how I organized it. Like I mentioned, it starts in 1969 and goes to the present, but the exhibition's not organized chronologically, it's by these themes. But the first theme, Liminal Space, is the closest to a chronological beginning, I would say, and it focuses on the 1960s to the 1990s, which is a huge swath of time, but there were so many exciting technological developments at this time, so it felt really important to me to highlight these pioneers that were working alongside these, incredible technological developments at the time. So for those of you who have seen the show already, Gretchen Bender kind of opens the show with her piece Total Recall. Gretchen Bender was a member of the Pictures generation. She passed away in 2004, but she was affiliated with artists like Richard Prince, Cindy Sherman, Laurie Simmons, and was really interested in the societal ramifications of mass media. We have in the show Total Recall, which if you've seen the show or you can look at this image, there's 24 televisions and 3 projections. It is a complete assault of the senses in both sound and visuals. And how she created it is she spliced together different clips from military commercials, corporate logos, and interstitial network logos as well to create what she calls electronic theater. Of course, this piece, it was made in 1987, but feels so prescient today because it completely captures this moment in which we are completely overwhelmed by information via our televisions or other screens. A lot of it, of course, commercial, for commercial purposes. And since Total Recall's upstairs, I wanted to show a clip of a different work. This is an earlier work called Dumping Core. It's in the collection of MoMA, but it gives you an idea of her work and how she splices together these disparate clips to create her electronic theater. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on the link. Oops. So of course she's very skeptical of mass media, but she's using its language in order to critique it from within. And I have this great quote from her discussing her work in the media, and she says, quote, "I think of the media as a cannibalistic river. There's no consciousness or mind. It's about absorbing and converting." Another pioneer in the exhibition, of course, of screen-based art is Namjoon Paik. He was considered the father of video art and was working with camcorders as early as 1965. This was a really important first work for my checklist. I knew I wanted this in the show. I knew I really wanted to open that first gallery with this. Of course, for his importance as an artist, but what I really connect with this piece is that it's combining this 18th century sculpture of a Buddha with a television. The Buddha's reflection is, of course, on the television. It's being filmed by CCTV camera in front of it. It's, on a side note, it's been really interesting to watch visitors interact with this work, and lots of selfies have been taken here, which seems exactly the point, but I like that it has this reflection on this contemporary vanity of social media. It's suggestive of this quasi-spiritual connection with technology. It has this kind of closed loop echo chamber that's going on between the Buddha and the image of the Buddha, and of course it's a mirror, and it's an instance of a screen being a mirror. Another important early artist is the British artist Harold Cohen. His work marks the first time the term digital art was used. He was a painter and quickly became bored with the work he was making, so he created a software called Aaron, and it was an autonomous drawing machine. It was a robot that created drawings for him that were often hand-colored. It's something that he continued throughout his life. This is a version, a newer version of Aaron, but this is him with the robot. So another really important artist that was using technology and the screen as a fruitful artistic medium. Another really important artist that's included in the show is Lillian F. Schwartz. She was invited in 1968 to be a resident at Bell Labs, which is now known as AT&T. They unfortunately don't have the labs anymore. But she also was a very early artist that was proving the computer to be a fruitful medium. She was creating a lot of films and also working with engineers at Bell Labs. This is a GIF, an animated GIF from one of her films, but she contributed a lot of really important early research on sound and color perception, and is an absolute pioneer in the field, who of course hasn't received much recognition as of late. She was in this year's Venice Biennale, which I was very happy to see. A name that everyone knows, Andy Warhol. I thought that this would be a really great piece to include because he's in our collection. I think most people know who Andy Warhol is, but he's always had a penchant for experimenting in new technologies, whether it be experimental films in the 1960s or computers in the 1980s. So we have this Amiga computer upstairs, and viewers are encouraged to interact with it. In 1985, he created about a dozen digital drawings using the Amiga computer. He was asked by Commodore to be their spokesperson for their new software called ProPaint. These drawings were thought to have been lost for decades. They were on a floppy disk in his time capsule. And the artist Corey Archangel, who's also in the show, he worked with the Carnegie Computer Lab to hack these disks and bring these drawings to life again. So we have him to thank for this. And I also just wanted to show a demonstration that he did on the Amiga computer, just to really show the novelty. I think, it's easy to forget how novel computers and different paint software was, but at the time, this was just incredible advance in technology, and of course, in classic Warhol format, he entered this realm of, drawing with computers as a spokesperson for a company. And apologies, this is a little awkward to get to.
Oh, there you have it. The Amiga computer. We've lived our dream and seen it come to life. Now it's your turn. What will you do with the Amiga computer? Thank you.
With that, our resident Amiga artist, Jack Haber, sitting with him.
Are you ready to paint me?
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here tonight to help assist Andy do his first computer portrait using the Amiga computer. First off, Andy is going to take a digital snapshot of Debbie, which is running on the system, and you can see the image up there on that screen. And just select the image, and it comes down. You found it to be very spontaneous, haven't
Yeah,
you?
it's great. It's such a great thing.
What more can you say?
Well,
I can
there's
say
a lot of things.
Oh, that looks very good.
So now we'll do the hair. So we'll go up the color and pick yellow.
Andy is selecting from the menu bar, which gives you all the features of the paint system, and he's selecting fill. And this is a slow version of the fill, just so you can see how Andy decides to work. Now this is an instance of a leaky flood film.
Yeah. Well, this is kind of pretty. I think I'll keep it.
Okay.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Well, with that piece being finished, Andy, I've been asked to give you an interview, forgive the pun. What computers have you worked on before?
Oh, I've worked on anything. I waited for this one.
Really?
Well, it's obvious that Amiga will be many things to many people. So many things, in fact, that we had to think.
So again, that really shows just the novelty of working with computers at the time. And of course, so a figure like Andy Warhol making it familiar and accessible for consumers, I'm sure is a reason why they chose him. Another theme that's in this exhibition is digital abstraction. Because we haven't shown a lot of work like this in the museum before, I felt like it was really important to connect it to formalism and to painting, as of course technology and the screen has influenced every medium possible. I felt like this section specifically was a really good introduction for our museum in particular. And one of the artists I included is Jacqueline Humphreys. She was born in 1961 and is based in New York City. If you can see in the image on the right, her abstract patterns are comprised of ASCII lettering. So it's this really thickly painted impasto. And it's just a completely dense pattern. It looks so light and airy overall, but it's really dense when you approach the surface. Jacqueline Humphreys thinks of paintings as screens, and she often talks about the lettering that she uses as this kind of torrent of information that she's packing the painting surface with, and that today there's really no definitive image. And so she opts for these, gorgeous abstractions, really connecting painting to screen. Another artist working with technology is Wade Guyton in painting, technology and painting. And he really was using technology as a way to remove the artist's hand from the painting process. What he does is he usually starts with a Word document and puts in the letter X, for example, and uses different consumer-grade scanners and printers and runs canvas through them. A picture of him working in his studio, too. Of course, running Canvas through these consumer-grade printers and scanners causes a great deal of glitch and chance. And critics at the time, these paintings were first introduced in 2007, and they were really controversial at the time too, which might seem crazy today, but one critic described them as paintings with quotes, just to really show this kind of dissatisfaction with the medium and questioning the validity of the work. Connectivity is another theme that is in the exhibition too. And this is really a theme that I think everybody can relate to, but several works in the show touch on this too. But again, you know, something that came out of the pandemic, but screens being at the very axis of interactions today, a lot of collaborations and, you know, interactions for artists also are online through screens. We're placing screens at the very nexus of this. And one of the works that I wanted to just mention is Francis Stark's My Best Thing. This really shows the collaborative potential of online relationships and really I think articulates this theme of connectivity quite well. So if those of you haven't seen the piece, I'll just give a little bit of a description, but it's an hour and a half, and it's this animation with these two avatars. There's a man and a woman, and the dialogue is spoken by AI, and it's this conversation between the artist and these strangers that she met online on the website Chat Roulette. The conversations range from art to life to film to sex, but really show this ability to connect with people, and also just kind of this transactional nature of online hookup culture, and the ability to have, you know, real meaningful relationships with people online that you've never met before. Another work in this section is Wickerham and Lomax. This is a Baltimore-based duo comprised of Daniel Wickerham and Malcolm Lomax, and they have worked collaboratively for many years, but this is a piece that they actually created during the pandemic. They used the software Blender, and how they built this image is that it was a little bit like an exquisite corpse. One artist would add something to the image, pass it off to the other. They would add another layer to it. It's a little bit hard to see in this image, but it's this really densely packed image that combines a photograph of two people, and it's overlaid with these trompe l'oeil shelves and domestic objects such as plants and bars of soap, which I think, you know, what they chose to put in this composition also deeply connects to this moment of quarantine when this work was made. Of course, they weren't able to collaborate in person during this, but I think not only the way that the working method that they used to create this piece, but also the image itself really kind of shows this hybrid nature between virtual space and domestic space in a really interesting way. And there's also a lot of physical objects on the canvas too. There's these threads of beads that are on the top of it, as well as like really, I would say, intense artist frame with spray paint and all sorts of additions. So of course it's better seen in person. So surveillance is another theme that finds its way in the show, and several of the artists, I think there's 5 artists in total in this section. But really, you know, as screens connect us to friends and colleagues or strangers to have, you know, online relationships with, they also connect us to these kind of broader systems of data extraction. Of course, there's corporate surveillance that's, you know, every time you look at a pair of shoes on a website, it follows you to every single website you visit for days and days. And just, you know, GPS and also web-based cookies, all the panopticons that exist in our lives that we readily accept and deal with on a daily basis really connect to this theme of surveillance as well. And several of the artists in the show, including Hassan Elahi's work, specifically deals with surveillance as it intersects with the screen. So Hassan Elahi, after 9/11, he was stopped by the FBI. They flagged him, put him on the terrorist list because of his Arab-sounding last name and his travel habits. As a response, so the FBI, they detained him and they watched him for, I think, a year while surveilling him. And as a response, he began surveilling himself. He put his GPS coordinates on his website for 7 years, and he took over 150,000 photographs of these banal details of his everyday life, the meals he ate, the beds he slept in, the toilets he used. I have a detail here just to show you, but he created this wallpaper. It's upstairs. Of course, there's a door cut out of this, but it forms a TV test pattern, and it's on a prominent wall in the space. So this was completely custom for this exhibition, and he told me that from his 150,000 image archive, there's about 30 to 40,000 images in this. And I think what's interesting about this, of course, is he's responding to actual government surveillance by surveilling himself. And he mentioned this too, but what is so interesting to me is that this is a compilation of images that you might also see on Instagram today. He started this piece in 2002. He started collecting these images before social media was really a thing. But of course, today, we all are surveilling ourselves quite willingly for the profit of Facebook, Instagram, Meta. So I think, I also find this work to be incredibly prescient and something to easily connect to as well. Another artist that deals with the topic of surveillance is the artist John Raffman. He was born in 1981, and he's based in Los Angeles now. But in 2008, he started a series called 9 Eyes of Google Street View, and he discusses himself as a digital flaneur who just wanders the streets of cyberspace. So he goes through Google, and I'm sure many assistants probably do the work for him too now, but he goes through Google Street View and finds just these weird and uncanny and wonderful and creepy images that exist on Google Street View database. And what I think is really interesting about this work, of course, there's an element of humor to it, but it really shows the blurring of public and private, lives in terms of what corporations are, providing us with this service, but we're really providing them with a service as well. I think this is also a really interesting series in thinking about the era of automated photography too. Another theme in the show is the posthuman body. And of course, screens are a way that we connect with people, but they're also a way that we construct our identity, we present ourselves, and how we view others as well. So this was another theme that quickly rose to the top as I was doing my research, because this is a theme I think that is just universally interesting, and a lot of artists are interested in, diving deeper into how identity is constructed online and how people are portrayed online as well through screens. Technology is really an extension of the body in a lot of ways, and posthumanism is a term that comes out of sci-fi, and it's this combination of man and machine, and so that's kind of my thinking behind this framework. So one of the artists that goes into exploring how people are portrayed online is Caitlin Cherry. This is a new painting that she created specifically for the show called Tasting Menu, and she really uses painting to underscore trends in representation, especially in terms of the screen-mediated body. Of course, if you look at her painting in person or on the screen, it has this really, thickly saturated kaleidoscopic palette to it that connects to the oil slick that you may see on the surface of a screen. She thinks of her paintings as screens as well. If you notice, there's a little notch at the top that shows a white area to just really kind of accentuate the surfaceness of the painting and connecting it with a screen as well. So she is looking at the physical characteristics of screens, but she's really looking at the commodification of Blackness, particularly that of Black femmes in social media. So how she creates these composite images is that she combs social media, she looks at different celebrity tabloids as well, and finds images of Black women, be it celebrities, exotic dancers, bartenders, and usually finds them, on Instagram, just really kind of questioning this commodification of the Black female body, and also showing how screens have mediated this, the body in a variety of ways. So another artist, so I wanted to also mention too that there's 50 artists in the show, but there are 5 works that exist only online. So I felt like this was a good opportunity to share one of them with you. If you've seen the show, but you haven't looked at the online platform, the online platform is available and accessible via QR codes throughout the galleries, but it's also listed on our website. But this piece, I think, also really taps into that same theme of identity. It's Guthrie Lonergan, who you saw earlier at And/Or Gallery. And this is, it's called MySpace Introduction Playlist, and it's from 2006. 2006 is the year that YouTube came out, and all of these videos exist on YouTube. And for those of you that don't know what MySpace was, it was like a proto-Facebook, and it created these kind of spaces where people could introduce themselves to their website, introduce themselves. It was this way of kind of constructing this vibe for your page, this introduction to you. And so all of these videos that were on MySpace had to be linked via YouTube. So Guthrie found a lot of these MySpace intro videos that just exist now without a context on YouTube, and created a playlist. So if you go to our website or access it via a QR code in the gallery, you can see the entire playlist. But I wanted to go ahead and show one of them for you. But again, I mean, MySpace was something, like, I used it. I'm not gonna lie, but it was a way, I think, of constructing identity and presenting yourselves to your friends and strangers. So again, this idea of the body being mediated by the screen. But I think it also is this really interesting artifact of that time. And it, really shows just the various ways in which identity is created on the web. We tried to find a way to circumvent the ads, but in classic fashion.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Seth, and I just wanted to say hey, because this is my MySpace and stuff. And I just wanted to let you guys know that I put a video up just to show you guys that this was all cool and all good and stuff. So I hope you like it, and I hope everything's cool with you guys and stuff. Everything's good with me. So, alright, well, message me, comment me, or picture comment me, or blog comment me, or do something, comment. Okay, that's enough. Alright, well, peace out, guys.
Another theme in the show is automation and the loneliness epidemic. Again, connecting human and machine, but with this kind of tension of isolation. Of course, this is, again, I think a theme that directly came out of the pandemic, but it's reflected in the show and works that existed before then, but works that I think really touch on this idea of social distancing and being far, but also just the paradox of screens. They're meant to connect us to others, but in a lot of ways, they're keeping us from each other in very real ways. And one of the works that I included is Median Gruppe Bidnick. This is a duo based in Zurich. And this piece was also made site-specific for the show. So the date's 2023, but the first iteration of this project was in London in 2017. Again, this really shows kind of the transactional nature of hookup culture. And just to give you a little bit of background, so for those of you that don't know, Ashley Madison is a website that's designed for extramarital affairs. It's a kind of a dating website where the intention is people will meet on there, they're looking for the same thing, they're both married, and they can meet in real life. Well, in 2015, there was a data breach to Ashley Madison, and of the millions of users, it was discovered that I think 99.999% of the users were men looking for women. So, of course, in this data breach, it was also revealed that Ashley Madison deployed 70,000 chatbots acting as women, engaging these very real men to, of course, get them to keep coming back and paying their membership fee. And so of the 70,000 chatbots, when I started talking to Median Gruppe Bidnick, they were like, I bet there's some near the museum. We're gonna look. So they have these, geolocation. So if you're somebody that's in Fort Worth, you're looking for somebody in your city, you can search within your area. So they basically did that. They searched within the area and they found 5 of these fembots based within a mile of the museum. And if you spend some time in the gallery, they'll tell you, most of you probably recognize, a lot of the places they're from. There's Crockett and Montgomery Plaza. So they created these kind of AI avatars of women. And as you enter the space, these completely bodiless heads are chatting with you and flirting with you and asking if you're available to chat. And just really, again, showing this paradox of the screen. It's a place people often use to connect with real people, but often that's not always the case. So again, I think, it's this very transactional nature of people looking for love or something more online. Ecology is another theme throughout the show, and a lot of artists, of course, deal with this topic in various ways, but really, as I started doing my research on this show, it was pretty astonishing to see how many artists were dealing with topics of ecology as they intersect with technology. Of course, technology brings a rise in energy consumption and tech waste. And there's so many artists, amazing artists, that are really critically examining the ecological impact of screen culture today. One of which is the artist Elias Semay. So Elias Semay is based in Ethiopia, and Ethiopia and Western Africa is really a site in which Western e-waste, technological e-waste, is being dumped. So we have the privilege of getting rid of this waste in Africa, and it's often resold in the open air markets in Ethiopia. So what he does is he works with West African women, traditional weavers, and these are all, I'll encourage you to see this in person, but these are all woven wires. And so he's really giving this new life to refuse and creating something beautiful out of this technological e-waste that was dumped by the United States. So of course, screens build communities in very positive ways and connect us to people that are like-minded, but again, I think all of us have seen the detrimental aspects of communities that are formed via screens, and especially in recent years, and how screens create these worlds, particularly online, where hate and violence can fester and assemble. So I included Arthur Jafa's The White Album from 2018, and it's part of the theme, Turning a Mirror on Ourselves, because I liked the idea of these works really showing aspects of society to ourselves, and shining a light on ourselves via the screen. So, and again, thinking of the screen as a mirror. So Arthur Jafa's piece really shines a light on society through the lens of found video. It's this endless stream of videos that he's found on YouTube, CCTV. Some of it, there's clips of videos that he's shot himself too, but the result is this unflinching portrait of whiteness in America today. And so it really underscores this black-white race relation in this country using videos that are already circulating online, on YouTube mainly. He is a self-proclaimed undertaker, so he's showing us a version of ourselves with material that's already circulating. And I wanted to end on this note. This theme is the repository. And again, I discussed earlier that the screens that I am really focusing on for this show are televisions and computers and smartphones, really the screens in which we can create and consume. And of course, this has resulted in a tremendous amount of image making and information. And so this theme, the repository, really includes works by artists that are delving into the topic of image dissemination and also just looking at this grand scale of data that's available today. I read also there's a statistic that for each, I think it's every 48 hours, there's the same amount of information is made every 48 hours that it did from the beginning of time to 2003. So that just shows you how much we are creating and consuming. So I wanted to end with this, even though this is the work that you probably first see when you come up the grand staircase. This is the artist Penelope Imbrico, and as you can see, it's 48,586,054 suns from sunsets from Flickr. Like MySpace, for those of you that don't know, Flickr was kind of a prototype to Instagram, and it was a way for people to share images with each other. And so she looked, a lot of her work is based on finding this found imagery. These are all user-generated images uploaded to Flickr. As you can see, there's a just staggering amount of photographs of sunsets. And I know everyone says every sunset is unique, but it just really shows this typology that amateur photographers really gravitate towards, but also just the sheer stream of information that we encounter thanks to screens. So that is it for me. I think we have time for some questions. Anybody wants to ask? Yes.
What considerations have you got for all this, the screens and the TVs and the cameras? That technology is outdated, and it's going to break down. And at some point, it's not hard to repair it. Is there somebody dealing with that issue? Because you got a traveling show, and 20 years from now, when the bulb burns out, it's done.
That's actually a conversation we've been having a lot. For those of you that have seen the show, you may notice there's an elephant in the room in the first gallery, and that's the Nam June Paik TV flag. We're having issues, that's a piece that the Modern Now owns, but we're having issues. They're 1985 televisions, they're CRTs, and so yes, there's somebody in DFW that works on CRTs, but to find the supplies in order to fix it has been really challenging. But a lot of artists, such as Paik, has, kind of written into their estate and, informed their foundations that they are okay with updates to technology. Gretchen Bender's another artist. that has always been open about it. It doesn't have to be these period-appropriate CRT televisions. It could be, you know, something more updated. So a lot of artists have kind of worked that in, but of course, you know, as museums, we want to try to honor the original technology to a point until it's just completely impossible. So that's something that we do talk about a lot. So that's a great question. Yes. Yeah, that's by Ava and Franco Mattis. And that piece, so it's a broken computer, but what plays on the actual CRT monitor, they're also found videos, but they're videos of different gamers freaking out and breaking their computers and just really showing this, you know, emotional impact that screens have on us. There's lots of expletives and people freaking out, but, you know, it has this very physical, you know, this physicality to it in the way that they chose to install it. Yes.
Alison, you're doing a great job. Thanks so much for this. Actually, doing a great job. But I have a question for you.
Okay, thank you.
When the modern does like exhibits like this, sometimes the purchase is modern considering purchasing one of these pieces of art.
We hope. That's about all I can say right now, but we hope to, because that is true. We do have a history of that, and I think these exhibitions really create a wonderful context for visitors, and it's, you know, it's great to be able to come back and to see these works for years to come. So I really hope so. That's definitely my goal.
Well, my vote is for, I forget the name of the artist with the wallpaper.
Oh, Hassan Elahi or Khalil Robert Irving? Okay, yeah, it's great, and it's site specific to the museum.
Hello.
Thank you. Yes.
How do the artists get rights to other people's work, like Penelope using other people's images?
You know, when we upload our images online, I mean, there are a lot of loopholes to, you know, we're creating things, posting them publicly, so that we really lose a lot of our rights when we choose to put that information online. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of fair game. Thank you. Yes.
You've included a couple of NFTs in the exhibition. Could you talk about, is that tricky to include, and will we see more of those?
NFTs, of course, are a very controversial topic, and the NFTs that I included are by Simon Denny, who really is looking at the ecological impact of blockchain technologies such as NFTs. So he's creating, again, kind of like Gretchen Binder does, working within mass media, using the language of mass media in order to critique it. He's using the language of NFTs in order to critique the ecological harm that they do. So I think that's why I personally chose to include those, because, you know, I think when I started telling people I was planning this show, I did get a lot of questions at the time about NFTs and if they were going to be included, and those felt appropriate to me because they are critical. But I don't think we'll. I don't know. I don't want to say that because I could be totally wrong, but I don't think so.
Don't quote you.
Yeah, don't quote me, but anybody else? No? Okay, thank you so much. Oh,
I just wanted to say how much I appreciated Alison opening the series for us. And then I also wanted to take the opportunity to invite you all back next week. Those that can be here, come early, walk through the exhibition, visit Cafe Modern, where they're having happy hours, a special drink each week. The artist Carol James will be here. She's a Houston-based abstract painter whose work we have. So anyway, see you back next week, and thanks again, Alison. That was great.
thank you.